Okay. We're going to be talking about today, I didn't put the you on there, but you are the faces of God. And that's kind of the premise we're going to start with. But first I have to share a story which really kind of set this, I mean, I had this talk already done, but it kind of set me in the place. But Friday night I was invited to go to a play in North Hollywood, and it was called Godspeed. And I asked my girlfriend that invited me to go, I said, well, what is it about? She says, I don't know, it just looked interesting. Okay. So we go, and didn't take us any time at all to get there because we left plenty of time. So we got to stand around the outside of the theater. And lo and behold, we didn't know, but this was opening night. So there was red carpets, there was cameras, there was just all kinds of things going on. And I met a movie star. I was so excited. Who remembers Charo? That's who I met. That was interesting. Yeah, right. But anyway, so I got to meet Charo, which was very interesting. But the movie, the producer that produced and wrote the movie got up and kind of introduced the movie and told us a little bit about what it was about. And it was all about the birth of Christ, the journey that he took all the way to his crucifixion and his resurrection. I thought, okay, this will be interesting. So what I found is we had very good seats. We were like the 5th row from the stage, and it was very nice. But what I found is that all these people around me were very religious, I guess that's a good word to put, and very Christian-based. And there's nothing wrong with Christian-based or anything else. And their interpretations of things is different than our interpretations of things. But it's still, no matter which way you look at it or which way you perceive it, it's still the truth. It's the truth for each and every person that is experiencing it and is aware of it. So as I'm sitting there and the play is going on, and I must tell you, these were the most absolutely fabulous singers I have ever heard, because it was all sung. It was called Godspeed Rock and Roll. And the costumes that they had the characters in were very modern day. Pilaf was in black stretch pants, boots, a jacket that had glitter and glam and all kinds of stuff all over it, and he had a crown. It was amazing. The Pharisees were in boots and leather jackets, and it was just really interesting. And standing out in the lobby, I could hear these gentlemen talking to some of the other people that were there, and he said, heck, you should see what we got the Pharisees standing in. Going, okay, that's going to be interesting. But the interesting part was that they placed it in kind of modern day, and the coolness about it was the fact that no matter what faith you had or what faith or belief system that you had, you could resonate to it. And you did that through the songs and the music and stuff. But as it was first starting, I'm sitting here going, oh, criminy. This probably isn't the best place I want to be. But I'm here, so let me see what I can do about this. So as I was sitting there and listening to the first act and watching the first act, and the music and the dancing and everything was wonderful, the lights were tremendous, I thought, okay, Susan, here's an experience for you. Can you sit there and listen and watch and look at each person that you get eye contact with and recognize they're the face of God no matter what they believe? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So as I spent time looking at that and truly appreciating all of their work and their talents and everything else, and I mean, it was absolutely amazing. All of that gave me an opportunity to walk my talk. Gave me an opportunity. Because normally if I'd known, the premise was all of that, I would have thought, that's probably not something I would, want to spend a Friday evening doing. But I was there for a purpose, and I lived my purpose, and you guys get to experience it today through what I'm going to share with you. So one of the things, the first slide, is to love another person is to see the face of God. And I had picked these slides out before I went to the play. So that was the first thing that I got to do on Friday, was to look at every person and see the face of God. That was the opportunity that I had. And I took every one of them as I could see the people's eyes. I didn't talk to a lot of people, but just recognized it through their eyes. I had that chance. So the opportunity was amazing, and I got to really practice, which was really fun too. Fun in the aspect that I got to enjoy their conversations they were having about the play and the enthusiasm and all the people that supported this particular gentleman through his church and everything else to get this on. And he'd been working on this play for 25 years. And it took him that long to get it to a stage. And attracting the people in his life that were there to support him. That was the amazing part too. And I think the show only runs through today. But it was a very loving experience. It really was. And I was glad I actually had the opportunity to go and do that. So we're going to repeat that several times during the morning. All right. And our next slide. Okay. This is a picture of gradation. And the definition for that is any process or change taking place through a series of stages by degrees or in a gradual manner. So when we did our meditation this morning, I asked you to bring to your forethought all the people that you have in your life that you could bring their faces into view. Okay. And if you imagine yourselves being one of those red, blue, or green, or yellow, I don't know what they are, game pieces, I guess, there, that every one of those people that you see as it graduates, it grades out, all those people begin to move out of your experiences. Through the process of 4 different elements, they've impacted your life. And there's not one person that impacts your life that impacts it the same way. Not one person. And you can be in love with so many people and babies and all of that, but they don't impact you the same way. It's always different. The ways in which every person in your family, friends, strangers, touches your life. You may not even be aware of it, and you may never be aware of it, but they've added something to you as you have added something to them. It makes gradual changes. Sometimes when they talk about love at first sight, I'm sure there's people that experience that. It's an instantaneous thing. And it's felt and it's seen and it's experienced. But most of us, in the different phases of our lives and the people that we have in our lives, those things are gradual. They gradually change. They gradually make a different impact. Slowly. It doesn't happen instantaneously. Not usually, anyway. But anyway, the 4 phases of this is the first one is intellectual, or the intellect. The second one is physical. The third one is emotional. And the final one is spiritual. These are different ways in which those impacts happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how each one of these things makes a difference and how we can recognize it. Because in the recognition of an experience with someone that you've met for 5 minutes, it would be really cool to know that that interchange that you had with them was like amazing. And I know we all have interchanges with people we'd like to erase. I know that happens. Okay? No denying that that's not something that happens to us. But they also touched us in one form or another. Some that we don't necessarily like to think about, because it means maybe we have some work to do. All right. Okay, so Ernest Holmes, the first way in which to step into noticing and recognizing things in our lives and changes in our lives is to use the intellect, use our thinking process. So when I thought about the intellect and the thinking, I thought, well, we have to kind of recognize and know that we have the freedom to do that. I know there's places where if you think, people get very upset, or you voice that thought, they get very upset. So freedom of recognizing that ability within you is a way of recognizing how you can make a difference. Okay, Ernest Holmes says real freedom means that man is created in the image of perfection and let alone and allowed to make that discovery for himself. Okay, so you didn't come with an instruction book. Did you know that? Everybody knows that, right? You didn't come with an instruction book. God knows parents want that. You really do. And we all experience that thing, you know. Everybody wants that. You get an instruction book when you get a job, called an employee's handbook, to kind of give you a rough idea of how they expect you to be and to act and all that kind of stuff. I guess God's printing press broke because it didn't happen for us. So we're out here on our own discovery. So how do we use these things to discover how you can see the face of God in everyone, in everything? All right. The other side of that is free will. How many have that? Boy, your hands all better be up. Because you've got it, guys. Whether you want it or not, you've got it. Okay. Free will, Ernest Holmes says, means the ability to do, say, think as one wishes, to express life as one personally desires. Now, all your hands should be up. Everybody has free will to do that, to think, to say, and to do. Everybody has that. Children don't think so. Children up to the age of, 19, 20? That's about the time they decide that that's something they can use. Because all the other times they say, no, you hear no. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. Lots of times. So as their process through life goes on and up this scale, and you guys will remember that stuff when you were young and all the things you chose to do or wanted to do and wanted to say, you really didn't have the will to do that at that particular point in time. You could think it. And knowing a lot of the boys and girls that I've had move through my life over these last lots of years, the ways in which I see them using the freedom of will is I will take this into my body and my mind, and I will make decisions on it. And my steps of behavior and my steps of change and my steps of development. I'll do that. You guys did. All of you did. You go up to a stove and do you put your hand on the burner? Does anybody do that? Nope. Because there was one point in your life, oh, but I want to touch that. My stove doesn't have knobs because my 18-month-old grandson wants to constantly turn them on. So we don't have them. Better than yelling and saying no. But he knows that that's not a toy. It's not something he plays with. But again, this will be something he'll have knowledge of later. That, oh, no, it's not a good idea to turn the stove on and put your hand on it. So it's things you took in, even though you heard the words, no, you can't, or don't. Those are the things that you took in, that got registered in your mind, and then as you progress through your age development, helped guide you, helped direct you, helped shape you. So that no, don't touch the stove, which didn't feel good when you were 18 months old, to be told that. Yet, as you got older, the recognition that that's something you could do later, as you develop that intelligence to know what you could do with it and how it worked. So we use our will all the time. And our intellect continues to develop as we go to school and we get more input from other authority figures and other people in our lives that continue to make that difference. I don't know if when you were thinking about faces and stuff, one of the faces that came to my mind was my second grade teacher. And the experience I had with my second grade teacher is I loved art and all that other kind of stuff, and I really wanted to do all that stuff. So at the end of school, she said, I lived across the street, and she said, well, I have all these supplies, would you like them? I didn't know if my mother would like that idea or not, but I said, sure, I'll take them. So I got all these handfuls of arts and crafts stuff and took them home. And my mom looks at me, she says, what are you going to do with all that stuff? Why don't you take it back and let her give it to another teacher? I said, she said I could have it. What are you going to do with it? So, okay. She's not going to be happy if I just lay it in my room. I know that. So I said, I know, Mom. I know what I'll do if it's okay. I'll go and get the kids next door and the kids on the other side of our house. They can come over and we can play school in the backyard all summer. And my mom said, okay, you can do that. That's okay. That's when I started teaching school. I was 7. That's when it started. My second grade teacher planted the seed. But the ways in which you do it, I mean, this is a person that I had for 9 months in my life, but she set a foundation for me that has just ebbed and flowed all through my 66 years. It's made a difference. And so intellectually, I can say thank you to this wonderful lady and know that she was just one little degree of what brought me here. Just one little degree that brought me here. So those little things that happen. So she's probably, probably way out here now, if she's out here. Way out there. So that was how that worked. So one is the self-recognition, which is recognizing the freedom that you have, and the will that you have in being able to take those steps to recognizing the face of God within you. That's the first place you have to see it, is within you. And that's one of the first steps. The next one is physical. And the physical, so you can put up the next one. The next one is physical. This one, I found a really cool quote that I like, is seek the wisdom of the ages, but look at it through the world. Look at the world through the eyes of a child. And I know there's people that can tell me, no, I don't have that in me anymore. I don't have that childlike stuff in me anymore. I'm an adult. I'm a big person. I shouldn't have those kinds of things. But you do. And looking at the world through that, you recognize and you make connections. See the puzzle pieces that he has? All the little figures that he's putting together in just many different ways. And I'm sure he's probably made that stack of puzzle pieces hundreds of times. So if you think about the puzzle pieces and the connections that we make, and the connections that we make can be that fast or they can be a lifetime. But we have to make them. We have to give ourselves the opportunity to step out there and to see what the world has to offer and to see it without giving ourselves limitations. As a kid, yeah, you get lots of limitations. As you get older, you have an opportunity to dissolve a lot of those because we have capacities within us to handle them. So we have the connection with oneself. And when we move through that, we're developing relationships. I mean, the relationship I have with my second grade teacher, it's like, wow, I hadn't thought about her in forever. Yet there she was. And I remember what she looked like. That was cool too. Those connections, the relationships that we build through connecting. Okay? And the next slide is how we connect with nature. God is seen in the star, in the stone, in the flesh, in the soul, and in the clod. Everywhere. That's everywhere present. Recognizing that. Recognizing the aspect, the physical aspect of who we are, which is what this falls under. The physical aspect of what we are. Okay, I get up in the morning and I look in the mirror and I go, oh, I need more sleep. Or I look in the closet and go, oh, that's too tight. I don't want to wear that today. It's too uncomfortable. Can I go back and look in the mirror and say, you're God expressing? Even the pants that were too tight and my face looking like I didn't get enough sleep, or I've got to put extra makeup on, to make what I feel, not anybody else, but what I feel is presentable. Okay? Those kinds of things. Do you in the aspect of nature. I mean, our bodies are physical nature. I mean, they develop, they grow, they change constantly. Just we talked about in the very first picture, is that our life is always changing. Not necessarily just in people, but in physical appearance. We're changing. And you know what? God didn't care what you look like. Not in the least. And the God in you gets to do that. Gets to recognize that it doesn't matter what you look like. Another one of ours is the emotional side of who we are. So let's put up our little dancer on the thing. Okay. This is a poem that I just adore. It's called Every Child Has Known God, not the God of names, not the God who never does anything weird, but the God who only knows 4 words. Come dance with me. Come dance. I'm sure there's probably lots of people on the beach, but does she care? No. Does she feel restricted? No. And there's lots of poems and things out there. Dance like no one is around and no one watches you or no one can see you. It took me a very long time to get to that place that I could do that. But now I probably can, because it doesn't matter. If I'm happy with it and I feel good doing it, I'm just going to do it. And if people go, oh, boy, look at that. I gave you something to look at. Look at that. I impressed you. You impressed me. So you have that balance and you have that opportunity to give that back and forth. So how we see ourselves in nature and how I see ourselves through our emotions. And I mean, we have lots of emotions. There's that new movie out. I think it was by the ones that did the Minions. Inside Out, yeah, Inside Out. And there's the characters. There's anger. There's sadness. And the characters, I bought a book for my grandson thinking, oh, these are cute little books about emotions. I look at the characters and goes, oh, my God, yikes. I mean, there's this little character standing there. He's red and he's angry and that. And, huh? Yeah. And then there's the little one that is blue. She's all blue. And her name is Blue. I thought, what a name. And then there's another one that's purple, and he's sad and fear. And then there was, then the other one is Sunshine. Her name is Joy. She's all yellow. I thought, wow, that's good. But when my first look at it was like, holy cow, this is like, I don't want to read this to him. I don't want to do that. But yes, I do. Because don't we all share those emotions? Don't we all go through that? And don't you know? Those are all faces of God. When you're angry, when you're sad, when you're mad, when you're depressed, when you're just sick and tired of doing the same thing you're always doing and not making any differences, that's God too. That's God in the very sad faces. It's God over in the different countries with people still battling with one another. That's God too. Everywhere, no matter what it looks like. What our job is how can we see beyond that physical presence, beyond that face that you see? Can you go beyond that face? We do in the wedding vows, some of the wedding vows that I do is this, when the husband and wife, the bride and groom are going to exchange vows, I said, I will say one of them, look into Brenda's eyes. Don't just look at Brenda. Look into her eyes. Look into her soul. Look into who she really is for you. That's who you're marrying. You aren't marrying the face that you see, because that face is going to be different in 20 years or 30 years or 40 years or 100 years. It's going to be different. This is what you're marrying. So this is what we're marrying constantly. We're making commitments all the time to people. Okay, and now the next one. Okay, life is the enjoyment of emotions derived from the past and aimed to the future. How many emotions of the past do you want to aim to the future? Not some of them. No. Yet, if you do, if you drag something from the past and you bring it into the future, isn't it God too? Isn't it God looking at where you've been, what you've done, and how you've developed to this point and so far? Isn't it? That's part of that. So what do you do when you have those? These are kids that are really happy. That one up there is a little pensive or going, what's going on here? And this little one here is like, I'm not quite ready to smile yet. You know, and these ones right here, man, they're in for it. They're in it. They're in it all the way. They're 100% into it. Okay? And how many times, even as adults, are we pensive? Do we kind of stay on the sidelines and kind of look at how things are going? Like when I did it on Friday. I know I did it on Friday. I kind of stood back and kind of, let's see, can I melt into this wall so nobody sees me? And that didn't happen often because they say, oh, how are you? Glad you came. Where did you hear about it? And all this kind of stuff. I didn't have a lot of answers, but if they asked me after, I could tell them. But I didn't have a lot of answers in the beginning. But those kinds of things, those kinds of wonderful things. And then have you ever, I don't know, maybe, there's a toy and it's called Barrel of Monkeys. Has anybody ever played with that toy? I have a lot of, yeah. Okay, it's a barrel. It's a little brown barrel, and inside's monkeys, plastic monkeys, and they have hands and legs and hanging out there. And when you open up the barrel and you take the monkeys out, they're just all over the place. They're hanging on this one and on that one and this one and that one and all that kind of stuff. They're all over the place. Well, you know what? That's your emotions. I thought I would have brought one, but my grandson did something with the monkeys. I don't know where they were. Couldn't find them. I found two. They're somewhere. I'm sure I'll find them in the vacuum cleaner or something like that. But anyway, what that reminded me of is how jumbled we get sometimes with our emotions and our energies, and they just kind of all over the place, all over the place. One of the ways that we can take those emotions and we can take those monkeys and kind of shake them out and give them a place where they can seat is by thinking and looking in the mirror and saying, I am the face of God, recognizing that. I wanted to share with you what Ernest Holmes says about emotions. I think it's very cool. He says, mental energy set in motion through feeling. Any of the feelings of joy, grief, fear, hate, love, awe, reverence. Emotion is a consciousness attendant upon other forms in consciousness. In the well-balanced person, emotion is controlled by the intellect. But in many people, the conflict between the emotion and the intellect is a challenge. Emotion uncontrolled produces chaos. Unexpressed produces confusion. Conflict and complexities for energy will have to have an outlet. Here we go. We're back. Okay. Emotions, let's see. Emotions uncontrolled produces chaos. Unexpressed, it produces confusion, conflict, and complexities, for energy will have an outlet. Bottled up, it creates pressure that is a cause of damage to the physical man. So we know that the emotions in all those little faces are really out there. And when we look at the face of God, whether we see it sad, happy, excited, it's still part of who we are. It's still part of that divine presence that's expressing. It's another face of God, those emotions. And we go to one more slide. This is a quote by Michael Teal. It's the spiritual strength of human beings at its most profound can bring one face to face with God's light and inspire in the soul a miraculous transformation which can bring peace to all. When I found that quote, and I love the slide. I would look over there, but it's right there. I love the slide because it reminds me so much of the ebbs and flows of our life. And if you can picture the first time you ever went to the beach and you didn't know you were supposed to take off your shoes when you go to the beach, especially if you're wearing tennis shoes, okay? First time you go to the beach. And then when you go back up on the parking lot, you can hardly walk because your shoes are full of sand. Well, what you're experiencing is the ebb and flow of the ocean, of nature, of everything that water touched, that touched that sand. And I can almost bet that probably some of that sand is way over on the other side of the world. And it made its way through centuries or whatever to our beach, to your shoes, giving you an experience. Telling you in your mind, guess it's better to take off my shoes. But then, when you do that, when you take off your shoes, guess what? You get, depending on the day, and the time of day you go at night, then the sand's not hot. When you put your feet in that sand, you're doing the same thing. You are making an impress in that sand. You are making a difference for the next person that steps over top of your imprint, your step footprint, even if it's gone. Even if it's gone. You were there. You made an impression. And that impression, probably 9 times out of 10, is joy, excitement for being at the beach, being out in nature, getting to do something different. That's what you left in that footprint, in that sand. And that's the energy that maybe the next person picked up from you, and you don't even know that person. You don't have a clue as to who that person is and what it did to them. Do you ever smile at a stranger on the street? Yeah. My dear friend who is here, I won't say names, my dear friend who is here makes a practice. You won't yell at me, will you? Makes a practice when we go on walks and we go someplace and someone walks by, she says hi. Whether they respond or not, doesn't matter. She has left something with that person that they may not recognize at that moment, but later they will. In some way, when they stand on the street, someone walks towards them that they don't know, and then all of a sudden they say, hi. Don't have to go with the conversation any further than that, but just hi. Just recognizing that person, letting that person know that you see them. Well, she recognizes the face of God all the time. All the time. And we have that freedom to do that constantly. So, in closing, we have a little project for you. You love projects, right? Just say yes. Okay, good. Thank you. All right. The last slide is, and I love this one, everywhere I look, I see the face of God and experience love. I get to experience love each and every day, each and every moment. And sometimes we get really tied up in our lives, hence a string. Did everybody get a pretty piece of ribbon? Mm-hmm. If you didn't, raise your hand, and I'm sure we have a few extras hanging around here. Okay. I have to tell you the story about this string. I'll do it fast. The story about the string is that I had this idea, and I was trying to figure out how I could put string all around like this, like a spider web, all on all the chairs. I was thinking, how could I do that? I thought, well, I don't know. That might be a little difficult. And then I was thinking, how many pairs of scissors would I need? I don't have that many pair. So that took care of that idea. So I thought, well, okay, I'll cut these things at home. So I got home from being at the office yesterday and got home, and my grandson wanted to play. And, of course, my adult mind was going, oh, God, honey, I don't have time right now. I've got to go do this and this and this and this and this. I thought, okay, what are we going to do? He said, let's watch George. I said, okay, that's George, Curious George. You always hear about that when I talk to you guys. We love Curious George. Okay, so he said, let's watch Curious George. I said, okay, great. I said, let me go get 2 things that we need to watch Curious George. He looks at me like, he's 4 and a half. What are we going to get? What are we going to get? I said, I came out with yarn. This is yarn, it's not string. And scissors. Big scissors. Big people scissors. He's 4. Wow, big people scissors. And he sat next to me on the couch. And I said, okay, you can use the big people scissors, but there are some things we have to do together so that that's safe. I said, you hold the scissors, and when I pull the string to you, then you just cut. And you don't open it wide, you just cut tiny cuts. He says, okay, I can do that. So we sat there for 45 minutes, and we cut 100 pieces of string. He only left once. I thought that was pretty good. He only left once. Ran over, played with his toys for a minute, and then came back. I'm back now. That's what he says. I'm back now. So that was delight. So instead of me going in my room or in my craft room and cutting 100 pieces of string, because that was my brilliant idea, I got this wonderful 45 minutes to, guess what? Share the joy and the love and the face of God with my grandson. So anyway, there you are. You can turn anything into play. All right. Now, the principle or the purpose behind the string is that you may have to stretch a little bit, folks, but you can do that. What we're going to do is this string, you're going to have somebody sitting next to you tie it on your wrist. And as you tie this on their wrist, you were in a hurry. And you're going to have someone tie this. And when you tie it on the person's wrist, please look in their eyes and say, you are the face of God. I recognize you. All right? So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that. And so while you're doing that, I'm going to go tie this one on Andy. I'll be right back. Sorry, I left the stage. Sorry. Okay. Now I know that everyone's not going to wear this all the time. Well, you can, but yeah, it gets a little, I don't even know if this stuff runs. So I have no idea. You won't find out, yeah. I'd say do the dishes first and see if it runs. That'd be a lot easier. So, no dishes. So what I'm asking you to do is to, when you look at the string, remind yourself that you are the face of God. Every person you meet and see is the face of God. And when you no longer want to wear this on your wrist, don't worry, because as in the sand, you have left an imprint on your wrist and the purpose behind it. So I recognize each of you. I see the face of God. Thank you for playing with me this morning.